Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's December of 2025, so what does that mean? This is the last of the quarterly updates for 2025. So coming up in this video, what are we going to do? We're going to discuss what I've done, what's progressed since the last video, stock that are coming on the way, some new stock that's arrived, a potential foray into another scale, and also my plans for 2026 and what I'm planning to do to make better content and some slightly different content for you all. So let's start off with what's happened since the last videos. So I've continued with the up fast main line and I've started laying the fiddle yard. My plan is by the end of the month, mid-January, to go from here by the station all the way around to here where the scenic break will be. I should probably apologise, I'm still a bit bunged up from recently having a cold. So, in the words of John Cleese, I'm sorry, I have a cold. So, what's going to happen? Once I've planned my fiddle yard for the down fast, at the end of January I'll invest in a box of Pico Code 75 bullhead track, a couple packets of fish plates, and we shall finish the down fast main line. We shall get that running. Once it is running, from about here, the tin of paint, right the way round to about here, I will rip up the down slow and I will completely retool it, rejig it to fit a little bit more in. The plan is to hopefully have these 4 sidings here strictly just for the down slow. The 5th siding here, which will be here, will be a shared siding between the down slow and the up slow and the up fast, because then what will happen is the train will come out of siding number 5, cross over onto the down fast. It will run down the down fast up to that point there, where it will cross over to the down slow and put into the station. So we'll have a slower stopper there, and then an express freight or an express passenger train can fly past it, and then it will head back into its siding through here. So that is the plan for that. Going forward into 2026, one videos that I would like to do, I know it's been done 1,000 times before, so it'll probably bore everyone to death, but it's a kind of just how I lay my track, why I lay it that way, and the processes I'm using on my layout, on my new layout, to lay the track, and how I'm laying it. Back in the 50s and the 40s, 60-foot section was quite common on the main lines. So what I'm doing is I'm making a piece of track about the same length of this gauge, or whatever gauge I'm using for the corners. So if I grab this green one here, if my fingernails that I don't have allow, I'm using these gauges and I'm making bits of track to the length of them on the scenic side with the bullhead track. And effectively what that's allowing me to do is recreate 60-foot section, which, if you've heard in some of the videos where I haven't turned the sound off and just let the train noises play out, you get quite a distinctive sound. So if I set this B1 off here and then we meet it over the other side, you might be able to get a good idea as to how it sounds. So if I just shut up a minute. hopefully that translated there onto the video, but it's that very, very stereotypical, familiar clickety-clack sound that everyone is familiar with. And that's what I've tried to recreate by doing the 60-foot section imitation. But that will only be here on the scenic side of the layout. With the exception of the points, the track over here will be code 75 Pico bullhead track. That is what will be used on the scenic sides, and the scenic sides alone. Over here on the fiddle yard side, it's mostly reclaimed and recycled code 75 flat bottom track, but I will probably order a box of it just so I can finish it off and I'm not left high and dry when I eventually run out of track pieces. So I think in regards to the track work, the most expensive side is going to be this side, purely for the amount of fish plates I'm going to have to order, purely and simply for that. So that would be quite an interesting challenge, and to hear 2 or 3 lines running with that clickety-clack will simultaneously will be quite a nice little thing to hear. So yeah, so that is why this side's taking forever. I've ran out of reclaimed bullhead track. I had enough just to do that one line and a few pieces here. So, but it is coming along very slowly. It's going to come together, and when it comes together, hopefully it will pay off. So that then brings me to the next part of the parcel. I've got the track, the rolling stock. I'm slowly rebuying up quite a lot of old rolling stock that I had, whether it be the same articles, such as my V3 and my J11, my standard 4 tank, a couple of my 9Fs and some other bits and pieces that I've bought back, or whether it be buying similar but new to me, like this Thompson coach. I had one of these in carmine and cream, and I had a 59-foot version as a composite in maroon as well, with that little graphic on it. And yeah, so it's going to take a time before I really have some stock diversity again. Most of it should be in carmine and cream, but I've thought of ways that I can backdate these Mark 1s in maroon to have them nearer a 1957, 1958 appearance, which basically just means adding on that crest, and then because they drop the crest later on. But most of my rolling stock will be of Thompson or Gresley origin. There will be 2 trains made up of Mark 1s, the Elizabethan being one of them, although at the time I'm modelling it was still pretty much a Thompson stock train, so you'll have a variation there. But the talisman, the morning talisman, will probably be one again, mainly made up of Mark 1s and Thompsons. Maybe the odd Gresley coach thrown in there for a bit of a splash of diversity. With the layout being based from 1948 till about 1956, one thing you will notice as well is the inclusion of post-war teak rolling stock, which would be quite interesting. I did have 3 coaches in teak that I had on the previous layout. You might remember them being heavily weathered and being used quite regularly. They look quite nice behind my D11, my A5 and tank engines. It was like a rundown commuter train waiting to be overhauled, and I would normally throw in an unweathered crimson and cream teak coach just to be like, this one's been overhauled, this is what they're going to look like afterwards. So you'll see that coming into play as well going forward. One thing that I will be doing as well is building up a small collection of pre-war LNER rolling stock. I have thought about having a Black 5 with some LMS stock as well, just as an interloper, and an 8F with a goods train. So, because the benefit there is a lot of the private owner wagons would still been in service after the war, although heavily run down. So I can use them private owner wagons to represent the earlier time period of the time period of which my layout is set. But the benefits of having the Mark 1s and whatever in maroon is I could also represent up to about 1958, and if I wanted to I could probably go into the blue-grey era, which is something I have considered, because I do quite like the Deltics as well. They were quite prominent on the East Coast main line. So my options at the moment are quite open, but at the moment it's dead set on a smaller running session of 1935 to 1940, and then predominantly 48 through to 56. At the moment I'm struggling to represent accurate trains because all of my rolling stock is maroon, where it would have been crimson and cream or teak, with some maroon creeping in there. But we will get there. But enough about passenger rolling stock, let's talk about the freight rolling stock, because that's where for me the real change in my approach has come. Here is a ready to run Bachmann low fit wagon which I've weathered, I've loaded up, and I've tried to represent a load that's been restrained down. Here we see a kit, I think it was a Dingenko kit or something like that, of an ex-Great Western 8-ton mineral van, cattle van, sorry, that I've built up. And then here we have two Parkside kits of ex-Northeastern LNER vans. I quite like building these little kits. They're a nice little challenge and they give me something to do. And when you build something and it runs around a layout and it runs quite consistently, quite happily, it's quite a little proverbial kick up the arse to get you going and want to do more. You know, I mean, when I did Humorist and I put on all the details and the locomotive came off and it looks as good as it does now, it was a really, really big feeling of, yeah, I've done this. So that's something I'm going to be leaning into quite heavily in regards to wagons, is kit building wagons, because it helps add a lot of variety into bits and pieces. So I think that's definitely something I'm going to continue doing going forward. As you might have noticed from the last time you've seen them, these wagons have been weathered. I did do a video on it, and then Jonathan over at Newton Grove made probably one of the best how-to guides on YouTube at the minute. You know, his video was clear, concise, and the results were phenomenal what he achieved. Then he followed it up with how to add weight into them. So if you do follow him, check those videos out, because they'll be very helpful, full of hints, full of tips, ready for you to basically pinch and use for yourself. The last thing to talk about going into 2025. In the winter in Britain it gets pretty cold, which means coming out here to the shed isn't necessarily how do I describe it properly? Isn't really a welcome thought in your head. As much as you want to come out here, you get put off quite quickly by how bloody cold it is. It's lovely when you open your curtains in the morning and it's all glistening at you, you've got a nice hard frost on the ground, you know, and if you're in the right place in the country, some of the views you get of the winter scenes are phenomenal. You know, I'm very, very lucky of the part of the UK I live, which is the southwest, the glory land of Somerset, or as Charlie Bishop would say, deepest, darkest Somerset. You know, if you get up on the hills in Somerset, you have some beautiful views, and in winter it's even better. You know, high summer, low winter, it's fantastic, some of the views you get around here. But it does mean it gets bloody cold, and the shed gets cold, and if I have the heater running for too long, it then trips the switch in the extension lead, because I'm yet to run power out here, although it's been 3 years and I should have got round to doing it really. I haven't done it yet. It trips that and it becomes a bit of a pain in the arse. So I'd like to do some modelling inside. Well, my workbench is currently full up with an O gauge West Country that I'm building. Well, technically a Battle of Britain, because I'm building Lord Dowding. So with that, I can't really set up a temporary little backwards and forwards and run trains on my workbench at the minute. So I've invested in a 4'2" board, and I'm going to basically do a little TT 120 roundy, and that will keep me occupied during the winter. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming up on the channel. But the main focus for this channel and me is this, the double O gauge. The O gauge might make an appearance, so might the TT, but not very often. We will be sticking with this predominantly. So yeah, without any further ado, I'll bring this video to a close. Thank you all so much for your continued patience over the years, and for tuning in and checking out the videos, for liking, commenting, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So with that, I'll probably do a small little Christmas running session just after Christmas, or on Christmas Day, I'm not sure yet, and then I will see you in the new year. So take care everyone, have a wonderful Christmas and a safe new year, and we shall see you in January. Goodbye.